Recording.
All right, we're recording. So this will be posted onto our YouTube channel. Ashland County has a YouTube channel where we record all of our committee meetings and county board meetings. We basically will be hoping to upgrade our equipment soon, but for now we have what we have. So with that, I will say thank you for coming and attending this listening session concerning the Ashland County referendum to exceed the general levy limits for April 6th, 2021. There are some county board members who, please mute your phone if you're on the phone or on your computer. There are some county board members who are present at this meeting, but this is not a county board meeting. This is no different than Enbridge hosting a community meeting where they provide education or listening sessions to that. So county board members will not be answering any questions today. So with that, we will start off with our presentation here. Those of you who are on the phone, we do have a presentation you'll be able to watch on YouTube later. On the screen, I'll be walking through some of this. So as a general history, it's been discussed at numerous meetings. The county is facing a fiscal crunch if more revenue is not brought into the organization. We also look at decreasing our costs. One of the limited options available to counties to raise revenue is to pass a referendum at a regular election, which will allow counties to exceed the limits which the state puts on counties' ability to raise revenue to pay for state mandated services and community contributions and other organizations. I will add within there, one of the key words in this sentence, it would allow the county to exceed the levy limits. It doesn't mean they have to. The county board could have the exact same levy limit as they do today if they balance the budget without exceeding the levy limit. So this basically allows them to do it if it's needed and if they have to due to whatever constraints happen. Under state law, communities are limited to raising their general tax levy by the rate of net new construction. This has limited the amount of money the county can raise since 2006, putting pressure on everything from roads to public safety. For Ashland County, the amount allowed by state law to increase between 2020 and 2021 is around $25,000. This compounded for many years has stripped the county of any ability to maintain operations without increasing debt levy. Debt levy is exempt from the levy limit law, but can only be utilized for capital items and not operations. By moving capital expenses to debt levy, the general levy can be saved for operations and community and non-mandated programming. We are reaching the upper limit of transferring county capital expenses to the debt levy. In looking at the last number of years decline in the unallocated fund balance, not only do we need to balance the budget, but we need to put money back into our general fund in order to provide the recommended balance at 25% unallocated fund balance, which would be around $3 million. The county issued $1.5 million in debt levy for capital needs in 2021, and that will have to be increased if we want to continue our scheduled road projects. Increasing the general levy via a referendum will not eliminate the debt levy, as the majority of the debt levy is used for road construction projects. Without stabilizing the budget and aligning the mandated service with local revenue, we risk not being able to pay our bills or make non-mandated program contributions within a 1 to 2 year period. The unassigned fund balance, the amount that we can use to pay for operations, is decreased from $3.6 million in 2015 to $962 in 19. And you can see the attachment. The balance should be around $3 to $4 million. I understand there's no good time to raise taxes, but the fundamental element of what citizens want for services, what the state mandates that we provide, and the local revenue to pay for them are misaligned. County board members are elected to make hard choices that will not please everyone, but they have a fiduciary obligation and a duty to oversee the county in such a fashion that it functions as an arm of the state of Wisconsin. I'm sure citizens would prefer not to pay any tax at all, but that is not an option. The price of living in a free country with a democracy is taxes. Without taxes, our country would cease to exist. Cutting staff positions naturally is being looked at, but we don't have the option to not provide mandated services and staff to support those mandated services. In discussion with department heads, we are looking for staff positions that are not mandated or support a mandated services. There's also political forces to play if we try to balance a budget by cutting or eliminating outside non-mandated contributions. We have no obligation to provide non-mandated services or contributions to the community, which have grown dependent upon, but would have to be evaluated or cut if the referendum does not pass. Not supporting this referendum is voting to eliminate outside non-mandated contributions, decrease public safety, decrease road maintenance, decrease health and human services, preventative services. The board choice is a hard one to make, which has been put aside for years. Attached, you'll find the mandated services, which we have no choice in providing, which staff is still working on to put the state stats in that require us to provide these services for the citizens. I've also included the downward trend in fund balances and our investment report. I've included the outside contributions highlighted in yellow on the budget worksheet, which if the referendum does not pass, the board will have to look at during the budget development process to see which ones they would have to eliminate. I plan on sending out a survey after the referendum vote to the citizens regarding their priorities for county operations, so the board has a better idea of the priorities for citizens during the budget development process. So a couple things on the budget development process. The budget will be started looked at probably by the department heads in July, coming back into August. The Finance Committee will be reviewing it in August and September, coming to the full county board for review, most likely the first week in October, to make any changes, going back to the Finance Committee during October, and the budget has to be approved by the county board after a public hearing and after a notification and published budget the second Tuesday of November. So even though it seems far away, the budget cycle itself is fairly close. And I would like to, if the referendum does not pass, I think it's important for the board to hear from the citizens. If they voted it down, what are they willing to do without? Because the current trajectory of spending money from the general fund to support services is not an option anymore. I'll go over the budget in a little more detail later. I have a couple things to go over first. This is the mandated services. It's in the packet, you can see. And then this is kind of your general unassigned fund balance expenditures. So in this case, we're going downhill, and that was from 2019 was the last entry there, and 2020 will show a further decline of utilization of cash. One of the questions that has come up is the federal stimulus dollars. So as you know, Ashland County will be receiving approximately $3 million over a 2-year period. We'll be getting $1.5 million in May of this year and $1.5 million in May of 2022. These funds have to be expended by December 31st of 2024. Because these are tied into the COVID-related response, these funds cannot be utilized to pay for road projects, to rebuild the road fund back to a good level, to pay for the healthcare deficits that the county has accumulated over the past number of years, which is currently at $1.7 million of an internal loan for healthcare. Those issues we are addressing, and the county board will be making changes and substantial changes to the healthcare in order to make it a sustainable model. So, what can we use this money for? We can respond to mitigate the public health emergency with respect to the COVID-19 emergency and its negative economic impacts. These include assistance to households, small businesses, nonprofits, or aid to impacted industries such as tourism, travel, or hospitality. These examples are intended to clarify congressional intent that these activities are eligible. However, state and local activities are not limited only to those activities. And so the issue we're bringing up here is the Treasury Department.
Yeah, they keep you muted.
Can you please mute your phone or your computer? Thank you. The issue that you're going to be facing is that Treasury Department has not issued guidance on this. They have 60 days to issue the guidance for utilization, not only for counties, but also for cities and down to the township level. And so we don't have that guidance yet, but the initial response from the National Association for Counties is that this is not going to be used to pay for staff salaries, for sheriff deputies, for road work, for child protection services, for the county clerk's office. It can't be used for those services. It could be used for tourism, travel, hospitality, small businesses, the things up here that have been impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. The board will be making these decisions. I'll be coming to the executive committee. I'll be coming to the executive committee on April 13th with further guidance from the Treasury Department to help them develop recommendations and or guidance, because this is another thing where maybe we want to put out a survey to our county board members, or maybe we want to put out a survey to the citizens to find out what would they like to see with that. My advice and intent for this federal money is to utilize it for things which will have long-term sustainability and improvements within this county. I would hate to see the county spend this money in 5 years from now, say, what did we spend that money on? I'd like to see things that could be done that will look backwards and say, that was a blessing, a one-time blessing that will probably never be repeated, to be able to utilize to increase, either, industries such as tourism, travel, hospitality within this area, since we are such a tourist-oriented operation. Second category, to provide government services to the extent of the reduction in revenue. So if we had decreased property or income taxes due to the public health emergency. So there are some places that relied heavily, some government agencies relied heavily on, let's say, a hospitality tax. Think of the Wisconsin Dells. They had very significant decrease because nobody went to conferences last year. This money could be utilized to backfill for that. Ashen County itself does not have a hospitality tax. We have a sales tax. The sales tax numbers did not change. In fact, we had slightly more sales tax last year than we did the previous year. The only thing that I have asked the federal government to weigh in on is we've had a couple $100,000 decrease in revenue from timber sales that was due to the Verso closing. Treasury Department's going to have to weigh in if that would be an allowable use to replace that type of revenue. I don't know, but the one thing we have to be careful of, after this money has been utilized by December 31st of 2024, we will be audited. If they find that we utilize this money outside of the Treasury guidance, we'll have to pay that money back. And so we have to be judicious and thoughtful with what we're going to spend this money on to make sure that we're not going to be a burden to future boards that are going to have to pay this money back because we spent it irresponsibly or impulsively. Thirdly, make necessary improvements in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. Treasury Department is very specific about making just these limited infrastructure improvements, even though we could probably do a lot of different types of improvements with HVAC systems or roads specifically or bridges. So the National Association for Counties is looking for Treasury to see if they can interpret that to help with the backlog, especially in Ashen County. We have many millions of dollars of backlog of road repairs that need to be done over the next 10 to 15 years. And without necessary cash, those are not going to be done. Fourthly, state and local governments can transfer the funds to a private nonprofit organization, a public benefit corporation involved in the transportation of passengers or cargo, or special purpose unit of state or local governments. So I don't really know much about that one. I'll have to talk to I see Pat Douse on the call. I'm assuming I'll talk to Pat Douse at BART on that one to see if that's something that is related, or is the Office on Aging doing transportation services? Is that something we buy vans with? So we haven't delineated that yet. And then responding to workers performing essential work during the COVID-19 public health emergency by providing premium pay to eligible workers of the county that are performing such essential work, or by providing grants to eligible employees that have eligible workers, employers that have eligible workers who perform this type of essential work. So again, that's not going to pay for the staff salaries of our county workforce, but it would be able to provide them a premium or a bonus from this money if the county board so chose to do that. And again, these are not Clark Schroeder decisions. These are decisions that the executive committee is going to weigh in, hopefully make recommendations to the county board. County board will be putting it up for the county board members to vote on over the next few months. There is not an immediate rush. I don't look upon April 20th as having final information. It will be the start of a process for the county to go through. How do we manage this money? The bottom line, looking at our overall budget. Let's see if I can open the budget here. When we look at our budget, this money, for the most part, cannot be utilized to support the county operations as the county has been expected and as it has experienced in the past. That is why we are asking for a $938,000 referendum over a 5-year period in order to stabilize the county finances. When we look at the general operations of the county, this is a spreadsheet I've created in order to provide greater transparency and ease of readability for the board and for the citizens. In this case, we look at overall revenues such as PILTs, shared revenues from the state, sales tax, property taxes. We have the general expenses here. This yellow portion are the things which, to the best of my knowledge, are non-mandated, so the state does not have to, we don't have to provide these services or pay for them. And there's $500,000 there. Courts, obviously, is a state mandate that we have to provide, support staff for the judges. We have to provide for the courthouse. We have to provide indigent lawyer fees. We have to provide psychiatric exams for people who are maybe not stable enough to represent themselves. So that operation, again, we have to do. County clerk's office does all sorts of different programs with operations of running the county. They do the accounting for the county. They do the payroll. They pay the bills. They get the insurance. They do all the things that county clerks do. Conservation, land development. This is a state, for the most part, mostly a state-funded program. And that's dealing with everything from water velocities, retention, land use as far as fertilizers and farm protection services and wildlife abatement. Again, service we have to do, coroners we have to do, district attorneys. You've all watched Law and Order. That's our mandated services. Forestry Department, the county has 45,000 acres of forest land. And so we have a department that is down in Butternut, and that forestry department manages our forest, and we harvest a sustainable amount of timber each year. And we basically get money from that, and then that basically helps support mandated county operations. GIS has to do with information on the website and mapping. The highway department, everybody drives on a highway. Health and Human Services has a number of different mandated services. You have an Aging and Disability Resource Center. You have a child support service. You have a housing authority. You have, I don't know what that one is. Drug court programs basically are diversionary tactics for people who have minor offenses, and we're trying to divert them away from jail because nobody life gets better if you go to jail. Economic support, administration, child support, public health, and an attorney. Land description, you all get land description and tax statements. They come out with land description and the Treasurer's Department. Public safety, the Sheriff's Department, everybody has had seen our Sheriff's Department. We also run a jail. So these are things we have to do, and these are all the services that come out of the Sheriff's Department. Sheriff's Department is the largest user of the general levy. Our general levy is about $6.7 million. Of that, $4.4 million supports public safety. So if the referendum doesn't pass and we have to do cuts, everybody's going to have to take a look at their budgets, but obviously the Sheriff's Department would be something that would have to be looked at given they're the largest user of it. Register of deeds. You're familiar with the county court recording mortgages and deeds and other types of legal documents. Treasurer's office, they basically handle the money and investments and the interest on taxes. We have a veteran service officer. Again, this is a service that we provide, that every county provides. So people who are veterans can come in and get help and guidance with everything from behavioral health issues. We have telemedicine for people to come in to visit a doctor at the Veterans Administration. And we have zoning. And so the zoning is basically looking at zoning throughout the county and dealing with septic and private sewer systems. So going back to the top, I think some of the concerns, and this is not these are not county board decisions at the time. These are things which it's important for the citizens to understand. If these services that you see in this yellow area are important, the referendum should be approved, because otherwise these services are going to have to be looked at. There is no other option for the county board to do. Going back to the budget process, when we get to the budget process, we will have public hearings. So if the referendum doesn't pass, as we go through these meetings with the finance committee and the county board, they'll be noticed, and there'll be plenty of time for people to interject and give public comment to their elected policy setters to say what is important to them, regardless if the referendum passes or doesn't pass. So that is my presentation. At this point, we basically are going to be moving into the listening session. With the listening session, we will try to call on people that we see on the list. I have our assistant, Lori, will basically call out people who have either raised their hands on the computer, and then you'll have 3 minutes to make basically a comment concerning the referendum, which is you're here to basically advocate for your position. Should the referendum be supported, or should the referendum be not supported? Because this is where you're speaking not only to the board, which has already made the decision to support the referendum. County board supports the referendum, but you're also talking to your fellow citizens. If it's important for you to support the referendum, you should basically let that know for the board to hear this. So with that, we have currently 41 people on the line. Lori, how do you want to handle this? Do you want to go down a list and ask people if they have it? Would that probably be the best way to do this?
As of right now, I don't see anybody with their hand up.
Okay. Are there any?
People, excuse me, do people know how to raise their hand on Zoom?
So on Zoom, where is it? Over here on this side? Under more. There. Under here? It's way over on the right of my computer.
Online it's under reactions. Yeah. I think it's different on all. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see where it's on here.
It'll be on the bottom of their screen, clerk, under reactions.
Okay, it's on the bottom of your screen under reactions. Mine's a little bit different because I'm hosting the meeting. So,
There's a little hand icon like this that you touch on.
all right, Jane raised her hand. Go ahead, Jane.
Thank you. I am Jane Mathias. I am the Executive Director for the Ashland County Aging Unit, which of course is a private nonprofit organization serving Ashland County. Tonight I am honored to be speaking on behalf of all the senior citizens living in Ashland County, which I have found to be a wonderful group of people that have contributed in many ways to Ashland County for literally decades. Any reduction in funding by the county would decrease the overall meals that we are able to offer to our senior citizen population. In many cases, it would call for the Ashland County Aging Unit to close meal sites and have folks put on a waiting list before they could even begin a meal service with us. From my own personal experience when delivering Meals on Wheels, I can tell you that people will go hungry. Many seniors are just released from a hospital setting, nursing home, or have other physical limitations that don't allow them to have access to nutritional meals on a frequent basis. Should Ashland County choose to cut our transportation 20% grant match, we will lose access to nearly an $80,000 grant opportunity. Our door-to-door senior and disability busing program will be eliminated completely. So please think of your grandparents, parents, friends, and neighbors when voting for the April 6th referendum. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody next that wants to make comment?
Clark, I have a message here that if it's someone on the phone and they want to raise their hand, they can do it by pressing star and the number 9.
Okay. Anybody in the boardroom here? We have a few participants in the boardroom. Does anybody here want to make comments? All right.
I have no one with their hand up.
Okay. If you don't have your hand up, do you want to make a comment anyway? Yeah, you'd have to unmute yourself first if you want to make a comment. So go ahead, since we don't have any big rush. Anybody want to make a comment on that?
Ron has his phone up, hand up.
Okay. Go ahead, Ron.
Hi, I pay attention a lot to the county board minutes and try to get on a lot of the Zooms whenever possible. And I don't know, through my watching and what I've understood is, I know the county board is very tight on the budget right now, and I know there've been cuts made even this last year. But at the same time, with the referendum, it's been stated many times that even with the referendum, there's no knowledge of whether or not we can even afford the non-mandated services. And is it going to be a guarantee that with the referendum passing, that these mandated services can still be afforded and are going to keep happening? I mean, we're voting to give more money, and how is this money going to be actually spent, and is it going to for sure keep these things open? I mean, and I ain't saying that we shouldn't vote the referendum, because the county does need more money. The county is very hard up, but also how's the money for sure going to be spent, and where is it going? I mean, obviously there's major changes that need to be happening, and how do we know what's going to happen? Because so far it hasn't. I mean, I'm just speaking for myself. I mean, it's hard to afford things as is. Places aren't giving raises because of COVID. The county's not giving raises to their employees because of COVID. And it gets to be difficult because now basically everybody's not getting their raises due to cost of living increases. Yet we're also going to be losing money for taxes, which is needed because there's things that are really needed in this county, but how are we gonna, we need to be able to know that it's gonna work out a little bit more in the future. And I don't know, there's concerns of how the money's, in my opinion, how the money's gonna be spent and whether or not things are gonna keep happening the way they are, or if there's gonna just be major cuts anyways. And that's about all I really have to say.
Thank you.
Pat,
Go ahead, Pat.
Okay. Pat Dowse I used to sit on the county board. I do understand the tight budget they have, and we've made cuts anywhere we could in the years almost 6 years I sat on there and on the finance committee. So I do understand that they need the money. But also speaking on behalf of Bart, that with pandemic, the amount of people out of work that cannot afford now that everybody else that's struggling, more and more people are going to be relying on public transportation to get where they got to go, because they're not going to be able to afford to put gas in their car, repair their car, buy a car, replace their car, any of that. So having a good public service in place really needs to remain there. Cutting all the non-mandated funding would impact BART in an excess of $100,000. Even though it's just a small amount that goes to BART, it's assists us in getting grants, which get us a lot more funding. So I think the amount that I think we really need to look at this and know Clark has done his due diligence to try and figure out where to make cuts and how to make cuts. And I think we just really need to look long and hard at this and try and decide what's best for the county, because cutting all the non-mandated services is not the answer. The aging unit provides a very much needed service for the elderly, both with transportation and with the Meals on Wheels. Some people think that because BART has a bus in town that everybody should just use the aging bus, but we need both buses because both buses are very busy in the city of Ashland, that neither one of them could keep up if the other one wasn't there. So there are that many people within the city of Ashland. There's a lot of people with disabilities that rely on public transportation, people of low income. So I really want people to do their due diligence and look into this and see that it is a needed thing. When I was on the county board, I started asking for this referendum way back before the school built their addition. So I was asking for it back then because I knew it was something that was needed, but then they started, they just kept depleting the general fund. And now we're into a point where we have to, it's do or die. So please look into this and make the right decision. And thank you.
Dave Siegler has his hand up.
Hi, thanks. I joined a little late, so if you address this, Clark, at the beginning, forgive me and just move on to the next person. But how does the fact that the county is going to be receiving a little over $3 million in COVID funds affect the county's ability to meet these unmandated expenditures?
I will address that. We basically went through about probably 15 minutes of this earlier. So I would just encourage you to watch the YouTube video when we get this posted, and your answer will be there.
Thanks.
And again, I will reiterate that the budgetary process, the county board members, they report to you, the citizens. And if you give them authorization for the levy limit exemption, they don't have to use it. If they can find a way to balance the budget by only using half of it, That's how you're going to hold your county board members accountable, by saying, we understand, we gave you authorization to do this. We don't want you to go all the way there. And the county board would basically be the ones that would be held accountable if we need to utilize all $900,000.
I have no one with their hand up.
Are there any other comments?
This is Jan Penn from down in Highbridge. I first of all want to say that it's the explanation that you've given, Clark, has I think helped a great deal in terms of giving the public the opportunity to see the dilemma we're in. As I understand what you said, if the referendum passes, it gives the county board the option of elevating the levy for up to 5 years. Now, we live in a county that, according to the United Way most recent statistics, that 47% of our population is either living in poverty or living day-to-day, asset limited, they call it, and having trouble making ends meet. So this is a really hard one. It's a really hard one, and it's a moral issue that Ashland County is not the only one facing. I would like to see the county board work quickly, if this does pass, to limit the amount of time that the levy has to remain at the level that you're predicting. The report, the governor's report on rural prosperity and the proposed budget does give, as an example, a lot of support for the state agency WEDA, which is the Economic Development Corporation of Wisconsin, to be working in innovative ways to provide services to rural counties like ours that is stressed, economically stressed. And I would strongly encourage the county board and we as citizens in Ashland County to become familiar with what's going on in Madison with this current budget that would fund, as an example, WEDA, to provide enhanced services to our area and put the pressure to them so that we may only see 1 year of a substantial, essential tax increase, and that we can find more of the long-term answers. And I was really glad, Clark, to hear you state that both in terms of how the COVID monies would be spent, that you're looking at long-term, because I think that's the answer. We can't just keep on with struggling without seeing some changes coming from the state of Wisconsin. Thank you.
Anybody else? Anybody else have any other comments?
Clark, there was one question in the chat room. Yep. From Paul to everyone. Do you see it there?
Yes. The question is this 1 million a year for 5 years or 1 million spread out over 5 years? It is $938,000 every year possible for a 5-year period maximum. And so that is that's what the question is on the referendum. So $938,000 exemption to the levy limit law, over, and then doing that over a 5-year period. And one of the things, it's like when we talk about long-term issues and investments, you know, I've started a little thing here, a little spreadsheet, you know, boat ramps, trails, roads to remote lakes, crowd control equipment, boat wash stations, you know, these are just things that we're thinking about. I don't even know if they would be allowed under the Treasury Department, but we're going to be working through these with the executive committee and with the county board to be able to say, with this federal money, which is $3 million, again, what are we going to look back upon and say, man, I'm glad we did that because we drew more citizens and more people from elsewhere to come here to enjoy the natural wonders that this county has. What would entice people to stay an extra day? What would entice people to come up here? I think that's what I want to really focus on, because this is a one-time gift. You're never going to see it again. And if we can maximize the value on that versus just, you know, paying down a debt, I think that would be benefit for all of us.
There's another question in the chat room from Lissa.
Within our county board packet, the question is, for those on the phone, how much is a property owner's taxes would increase a year for $100,000 valuation? I'm going from memory. I believe it was $87, if I remember correctly, for a $100,000 home. Any other questions?
Pat Dowse has one.
Go ahead, Pat.
Clark, just, is there an option to, say, raise the sales tax by 0.5% and spread it over everybody who enters the county and purchases things, so that, because some of these services are utilized by people coming into the area. So is that an option at some point to do something like that? Because wouldn't a 0.5% increase in sales tax cover pretty much what you're asking for?
So the sales tax, the governor's budget did allow by a citizen vote an additional 0.5 cent sales tax for counties. In my discussions with our legislators, that is not going to be, I guess it's dead in the water, as they say. They're not going to allow that. And so this has to do with the political dysfunctionality down in Madison. I've talked to the Department of Revenue, because the Department of Revenue is concerned about our cash position here, because as an arm of the state, we need to carry out these mandated services. And one of the things they're looking at is, would they basically allow us to be able to have some sort of exemption to that legally without going through the legislators? So right now, even though the governor wanted it in the bill, the legislators are not going to allow counties to add a 0.5 cent sales tax, even though I personally think it would be a wonderful idea. In addition, Chairman Pufall has often brought up the fact, why don't they allow us to institute a gas tax, again, for individuals coming in here that are buying gas and tourism. Like you said, they're utilizing our services. We need public protection. We need courts, everything that happens with tourism. And that is dead in the water, also allowing for a gas tax. Any other questions? Any other questions or comments?
There's a question in the chat room.
Okay. The question is there an opportunity to streamline and find efficiencies within the current county operations? Obviously there is, for sure there is. And so we are actually looking at, I'm writing a grant as we speak that will go to WEDC that would allow us to hire a consultant to be looking for some of these some of these efficiencies, especially within the fiscal aspect of how we manage our money. And so, yeah, so that is half the equation right there. Another question was just for information, the increase in sales tax bring to the base on the current, just for would the increase. Okay, so the question evidently is if the state were to allow us to add a 0.5-cent sales tax, and that in the governor's budget, basically that basically was also approved by a citizen referendum. If we are allowed to do that, that would bring in another probably $1.3 million in sales tax. So that would totally solve the problem. But so if you think that's a good idea, as a citizen, you should probably contact your legislators to encourage them to put that back into the budget for, you know, for the next biannual budget. Other questions?
I'm seeing no more.
All right. I really appreciate people coming here, even though there weren't a ton of questions. I appreciate people coming in and wanting to learn a little bit more about the county finances. As I said earlier, this is a recorded and will be on our YouTube channel along with our other county board meetings. We understand the audio and video component of our YouTube channel is not up to par. We are hoping that the Treasury Department will authorize us to spend some of that money to upgrade this system so that your experience with the YouTube channel will be more enjoyable and more understandable, because it is hard to understand people talking to the microphone sometimes. So thank you for attending, and look forward to seeing you at future meetings. And quit recording. Thank you.